I think it's fair to say that Raheem Sterling didn't exactly win over any new fans after yesterday's performance. I just thought he was really, really poor in so many ways. Let's have a look at some of Raheem Sterling's metrics then. First of all, this is a look at his heat map. What am I doing? I'm clicking all the wrong buttons. There you go. So he was playing on the left-hand side. He did drift inside on occasion, but, he tended to play the majority of his football in that half space in from the left-hand side. I just wonder if he might have had a little bit more joy if he sort of pulled out wider at times. If he got the ball sort of on the touchline and dragged out one player, because two players don't really want to come out of the defense and close you down when you're on that touchline. I just wonder if he might have had a little bit more luck in terms of beating that first man. But obviously, Raheem Sterling's instinct, being a right-footed player, playing from the left-hand side, is to go in field. I just felt that his starting position at times could have been a little bit wider, and that might have helped. But look, minutes played 69, expected goals 0.002, expected assists 0.006, no shots on target, no shots off target, one shot blocked, 2 dribble attempts, none of which were successful, 36 touches, 79% pass accuracy rate, 1 key pass, 1 cross, didn't win any of his ground duels, won the only aerial duel that he had, in fairness, but lost possession 13 times. Now, what I would say here is, when it comes to losing possession, I've got a much higher threshold for what I allow in terms of the number of times that you lose possession if you're playing as a winger, expected to take on someone and beat someone and produce that moment of magic, than I do if you're Thomas Partey. Okay, so Thomas Partey, seven occasions on which he lost possession. That is a lot worse than losing it 13 times, even though it's nearly double the number when you're playing as a winger, because you can lose the ball in that area. You can afford to. You've got that extra license to take risks because your primary objective is to create a spark and create a moment. So it's very, very different. I know people might look at that and go, well, that's nearly double the number that Thomas Partey did. And we're talking about how bad a game Thomas Partey had. So Raheem Sterling must have had a real stinker. I think he had a poor game. No shying away from that. There's no getting away from that. But to lose possession 13 times as a winger, it's not good enough, but it isn't as bad as the 7 when you're playing as a 6, is the point that I'm trying to make here. Those were his statistics on the day. The offsides was a massive frustration, I know, for a lot that were in attendance yesterday, including myself. I'm actually surprised, looking at the statistics, that it's only 2. I know there were a few occasions in the first half where we got caught offside. I know a few of them were down to Leandro Trossard as well. But the Raheem Sterling ones, they were just really, really frustrating. And I'll tell you why they're frustrating. Because A, when you're the wide man, you've got the benefit of looking across the line. So there's less of an excuse for it. But B, it was like he was getting caught offside out of this desperation to try and earn himself that yard advantage, when actually Raheem Sterling should back himself to, even when timing his run correctly, be able to beat people. Like the Raheem Sterling I remember would have backed himself, backed his pace, backed his sharpness. And it looks like at a time where the player is quite clearly shot of confidence, he's struggling to sort of back himself. And that can lead to a tendency to go a little bit earlier. And when you go a little bit earlier, obviously you run the risk of getting caught offside. Raheem Sterling ain't that old, And I know that, one of the things that was said about him when we signed him was, he's over the hill, he's past it. What are we doing here? But then I got thinking just recently about, how young Raheem Sterling was when he made his debut. And if you think about how much football he's played then over the course of those years, it's kind of understandable that he is kind of where he's at in terms of, his level just declining and waning a little bit. And I think this is something that we've seen quite a bit over the years, even at 30, okay? Even at 30, if you've been playing since you were 17 relentlessly, that is going to catch up with you. And he's not the only player we've seen this with. And this is why it's so incredibly important that we look after the likes of Ethan Nwaneri, for instance, and Bukayo Saka. Because I've seen many players over the years get to sort of 30 and look completely burnt out and shot. And that shouldn't happen. But it does happen as a consequence of them starting their careers really, really early. And playing a lot of football over a long period of time. Wayne Rooney's probably the best example I can think of. Wayne Rooney looked finished at 30, 31. And when you think about how good a player he was growing up, that's crazy, right? But because he started a lot younger, like, your body can only take so much. And I do sadly believe that that is the case now with Raheem Sterling, where, he's over the hill. It's not necessarily an age thing, but it's a burnout thing. And I don't know that he can cope with the rigors of top level football. And when I say top level football, I don't mean Premier League. He can play in the Premier League. He's absolutely good enough for that. I just don't think he's good enough to play at an elite Premier League side anymore. I think we're at the point where you need to really sort of start to think about that. And I think based on the evidence we're seeing, I don't really know how he can start the next game. I just don't know how that can really work, to be honest with you.